Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome, everyone. I'm sorry, there's a bit of a feedback. I'm not too sure why. Has someone else got their microphone? Okay. Anyway, welcome to the long-term plan workshop today. I'm in the chair because Mayor Susan's not that well, and she's online, as well as Mike Montgomery and Roger Gordon, and I'm not sure if Andrew might also be trying to join online. Anyway, great to have you all here, and I'd like to call on Dale Marie if you would kindly open with karakia, please.
Tēnā koe Claire, tēnā koutou I te whare. Ai, korangi, ko papa, ka puta ko rongo, ko tāni mahuta, ko tangaroa, ko tūmatauinga, ko haumia tiki tiki, ko tāwhiri mātea. Tokono rā, ko rangi ki runga, ko papa ki raro, ka puta te ira tangata ki te whai au, ki te ao marama, ti hei mauri ora. I te tutahi he mihi ki tō tātou kuini, nā waihono I te pō, me te whare kahui ari ke rire hau pai mai rire. Tuarua, e mihi ana e moi I tō mātou hoia, Papa Bom Gillies, I roto I te rōpū, te hoko whetu atu, e moi te pāpā, e moi I tō moingaroa. Tēnā tātou I te whare.
Kia ora. Thank you for that. Okay, so we're here about the long-term plan, and I'm going to hand over to the team at the end of the table there. To you, Melissa.
Madam Chair, could I just raise a point of procedure, please?
Yes, you're welcome to.
We were advised last week to restrict our contact with staff from late Friday to early Monday mornings and respect their weekends. The information for this workshop was dropped at 5 on Friday afternoon. Surely what is good for the goose is good for the gander. And I'd like to move that this workshop be postponed until adequate working days has been allowed for elected members to consider the material for this workshop. I'm not sure if any of my fellow EMs would be willing to second that motion, but I'd like to make the motion anyway.
Thank you, Roger. I wasn't expecting this. I'm just going to confer with Stephen Kirsty as to the correct way to handle this procedural item.
We just might want to
Yeah, well, I think what Roger is, I'm not sure whether or not we even need to have a seconder for, is it a procedural matter or a point of order?
so it's a group.
It's a workshop, yeah. Hmm.
All right. So I've just had some advice from Steph, Roger, and she said that you don't need to have a seconder for raising this, and that it's the appropriate thing to do is to allow our councillors, all those around the table, to discuss the matter as to whether or not sufficient time has been allowed. You know, this is an informal discussion, it's not a formal meeting, and so it's really up to us whether we feel we've had sufficient time to prepare. Yeah, I suppose the point you've raised, Roger, is that have we been provided with sufficient time to digest the information and to be able to discuss the material in a way that's going to do justice to it? So anyone like to contribute to the discussion? I'm used to having to read stuff on the weekends.
Oh,
Quite
so am I.
often.
Yeah.
We do get that. And the other thing I'm conscious of is that we've been made pretty aware of the workloads that staff, and particularly the team that's working on the LTP, are having to face. And I'm sure they circulated the material as soon as they possibly could, even if that was 7 minutes after 5 on a Friday
And
night.
after the project governance group as well, which
Yeah.
understood
Yeah.
place, which was an important part of the process.
Yes, and Steph's just reminding me that an important part of the process leading up to circulating the material was that there is a governance group that does have a briefing that's showing the material, and that was on the Friday. And actually that was at 3 o'clock on the Friday,
Yeah,
wasn't
it
it?
was.
Yeah. So any feedback from that needed to be taken into account and the material adjusted. However, that's just some background. So it'd be good to go around the table and see, how, so, okay, I've got a hand up with Mike Montgomery. So if you'd like to share your thoughts, Mike, thanks.
Thanks, Claire. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, that's great.
Yep.
Look, I hear what you're saying, Roger. However, I have gone to extreme effort to both read this material and to be here today. I won't go into detail, but to replicate this again later in the week wouldn't be possible. So for me, it's definitely carry on with this. It's only a workshop. There was only 60 pages of reading. There's no decisions being made here, so this works for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Any other comments around the table? Phil,
No, I'm ready to go.
you're ready to go as well? Liz, how about you? You were looking at me,
Hey,
so.
look,
yes.
I have had a really busy weekend. Most of you know that the Great Kiwi Summer Festival was on at Lake Karapiro. So I have very hurriedly tried to read what I can this morning. I don't feel like I'm as over it as probably some of the other councillors, but I'm here. I think, we're here, we're all together. I think it would be very difficult to reschedule. What I'll just maybe ask staff to do is to maybe move through the presentations a bit more slowly, and we can ask more questions, just because I probably don't feel as confident maybe as some of the others might be here. Thanks.
Thanks, Liz. Those are really reasonable suggestions. Lou, yep.
I would like to replicate very, very much what Monty said. It's a very busy weekend for a few of us that commemorate Armistice Day, and on my second service in 3 days. So it's been quite a busy weekend and a lot of other things. But the one thing I would just escalate is that the information did come out very late, which made it a little bit more difficult than normal.
Okay, thanks. Good to have that feedback. Any other comments over this side? Go. Dale?
I just tautoko the sentiments of us moving forward today because we've all got busy schedules, so kia ora tātou.
Kia ora. All right, so I think the consensus is that regardless of how challenging it may have been, and it wasn't ideal timing, but best efforts have been made, and because we're all together, it's probably reasonable to just proceed. And I think the suggestion that Liz made for staff to just step us through it and have, with enough time for us to follow it, I think that would be okay.
I'm happy to accept the elected members' collective point on that. I would just ask that perhaps as elected members, we do set a protocol for staff giving us information with a minimum number of working days reading in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Roger. We'll take note of your comments and see what we can do with those. Thank you, appreciate that. Okay, so with that in mind, I hand over to you, Melissa, and your team, to lead us through the presentations.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Council. So again, as we're kind of getting into the rhythm of this, we're doing this slide at every workshop. So just confirming where we're at in the process. Today, we're very much focused on the discussions around the finance strategy and the finance and funding policies. And the outcome or the feedback from today's workshop will flow into next week's workshop where we're looking to confirm the budget, but also the discussion on the 3rd of December where we look to present to you a first draft of the fees and charges document. So the purpose of today's workshop will be presenting to you a draft financial strategy, and that obviously incorporates all the feedback and the discussions that we've had with you to date. And then we will also cover off the 3 finance and funding policies. So these being the revenue and financing policy, treasury management, and the remissions and postponements of rates and water charges policy. And then at the end, if you've got any questions around the forward work program or the parking lot, we're obviously happy to answer those at the end of the workshop before we close out. I'll hand over to Ken now to talk you through the detail around the financial strategy.
Yeah, great. Okay, thanks, Melissa. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, councillors. Okay, so look, financial strategy. So just picking up on the context of this first. So a financial strategy is required under the Local Government Act. We must prepare a financial strategy, and have that underpin every long-term plan. What that financial strategy does is it sets our vision and our approach to planning and managing our finances. It sets limits on debt levels and rates increases. So look, a financial strategy is a very important document. What this financial strategy will also reflect is the really significant work that we've done over a number of weeks and months in this chamber, and we've done that in a very open environment with the live stream out to our community. So this is bringing together all of those previous workshop discussions that we've had, like I say, over quite a lengthy period of time. I just want to pick up as well in regard to context that the development of this financial strategy has been done in the context of a number of challenges. So look, unfavourable economic conditions. So significant inflation, significant interest rates. Both those things. The highest they'd been for a number of years. And obviously as well, when perhaps there's impacted by those first two things, a slowdown in the levels of our growth, which has really impacted our finances as well in terms of reduced revenue levels and in terms of development contributions coming in later. Look, we have had underfunding of water and wastewater activities. We've talked about that at length and showed you the graphs. We have had utilisation of debt and utilisation of reserves to keep rates lower at certain times, but unfortunately our ability to use those mechanisms going forward has been severely impacted by the fact that those reserves are largely gone and by the fact that our debt levels are really pushing up against the limits that we've got in place. So increasing debt levels, $100 million increase in the last financial year. Pretty much a budget for that to be a similar increase in the current financial year. So we are very, very close to our debt to revenue ratio limit. And of course, the other factor that we've got in play here, which does add to the complexity as well, is affordability concerns for our community, because it is not only council, obviously, that has been impacted by the financial landscape that I talked about. It is the households in our community as well, and the businesses in our community. All have been affected by the environment that we're experiencing. Okay, so that covers the context in terms of. Here we go. In terms of the key changes that are really coming through the financial strategy, at a high level, there's a few bullet points there. But look, the biggest change in our financial strategy, so it is first and foremost in the introductory pages of the strategy, is that we need to fix our balance sheet. So we've had historic funding shortfalls. Our debt levels are really high, compared to where they've been in the past. We are right up against those limits. We need to reset the picture and have our debt at sustainable levels. That is the biggie. Some of the changes that come through this and are in support of that is we are looking to push up our net debt to revenue ratio limit. We're looking to increase that from 280% to 350%, or 2.8 to 3.5, if you express it that way, because that is required to enable adequate debt headroom in the early years of the LTP, and then we look to step back from that over time. We also need increased revenue to ensure that we can actually remain within that 3.5 covenant provision. That increased revenue or the higher rates, we will use that to partly to pay down debt faster, and of course that reduces interest costs over time. We do need to, for the first 3 years, we do need to change our ratio, which reflects the proportion of our income that comes from rates. That has been set for quite some time at 65%. No more than 65% of our income comes from rates. We are going to have to push that up to 75% for a 3-year period before reverting back to the 65%. Our debt management approach will involve rigorous checks and balances across all of our investment decisions, particularly CapEx decisions. And yeah, another theme that you'll see coming through here is that our LTP is 1 9-year plan rather than 9 one-year plans. So look, what we are looking to do and what our strategy is saying that we will do is to provide better rates predictability. Yeah, you can see that we are looking to have consistent rates rises over multiple years rather than fluctuations from year to year. All about increasing the predictability and the consistency of our rate setting. Okay, so there is one piece of specific feedback that we are looking for today. So yeah, so I would like to just talk you through that, and then this matter could be considered. So look, looking for guidance in terms of how we express the limit on rates, the rates increases benchmark. Okay, so look, yeah, so over multiple years, we have tended to set that on LGCI plus a margin. So LGCI plus 2% or LGCI plus 3%, and yeah, we set that, and we very much work within that for the for the 10 years of an LTP. In this case, 9 years. Now, the situation that we have been very open and transparent with you about is that, yeah, we would not be able to use a measure like that for the first 3 years of this LTP. The rates increases that we need to put in place to fix this balance sheet, and in fact, even in the first of the years to even balance the budget, require much higher rates increases than what could be provided for in an LGCI plus 2 or 3%. Okay, so look, two approaches to this, and actually it's probably a little bit unfortunate we don't have the graph there, but yeah, you'll recall that the bar in those first 3 years for the level of rates increase is high. So look, yeah, the first thing that we could do is use our traditional approach of yeah, setting an LGCI plus 3%. Say we could set that, and we would obviously be in breach of that in the first 3 years. We will punch above that with the level of our rates increase, and if we are to do that, then we would be having to disclose in our LTP, in our annual plans for the next 2 or 3 years, and in our annual reports that we have been non-compliant with this rates increase benchmark. That would be option one. Option two is to set I guess a bespoke higher limit for years 1 to 3. Like we know how high the rates increases need to be to make the numbers work. So we would look to set the rates limit higher to reflect what the need is. Yeah, we would. I mean, what that would give us is obviously a really clear disclosure in the financial strategy that rates increases need to be at that level, and that would obviously avoid the need to report non-compliance. So that is the suggestion that officers are making. That that in general, yeah, we're looking over the 9 years, obviously, to be working to the point where we can provide some predictability here in terms of LGCI plus either 2 or 3%. Yeah, but at the same time recognising the bespoke need in the first 3 years to be higher than that. Yeah, so if we disclose it, if we set the bars accordingly, then yeah, then we will be in compliance with that. It is a really fundamental part of our financial strategy.
Thank you, Ken. So you're looking for feedback from us on that, and it's actually on page 2 of our material. Oh, actually, so page 3 of our workshop pack. Yeah, so invite some comments from those present. I can see that Roger's got his hand up. Roger, over to you. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm slightly contrary to what the recommendation is. I think I would prefer 1, because as I said, if there is non-compliance, then in having to report non-compliance, you have actually to explain the reason in the annual reports why you've been non-compliant, and therefore in that there is accountability to our community. If we adopt the second point, which is to set higher limit, I think, and not having to report back to our community, then that doesn't impose any accountability on council for their performance in that regard. So I'd like to see us sticking with one, basically for that accountability factor.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
Roger. I think Ken would like to respond to that.
Yeah, so thank you for that comment, Roger. I certainly hear where you're coming from. Look, this is not avoiding accountability though. So we will have to in our LTP set that bar at a level. Okay, so this is just this discussion is about at what level we set that bar, and then we do need to be accountable for where that bar is set for those well, certainly for the first 3 years of the LTP. So it's not like we can suddenly decide that we want to go higher than that bar we set. Like let's say we get to year 2 and we want to go higher than the bar wherever that is set. Yeah, we absolutely need to be we would need to be accountable against that in year 2. So yeah, so we're not looking to avoid accountability. I mean, I guess the reason that officers are pushing towards that number 2 is it just seems to be. I mean, our financial strategy has been really clear. That's where we are setting the accountability as to how high those bars need to be in the first 3 years. That sets it. It just does not. It does not seem intuitive to have a financial strategy that quite clearly says we need the bars these high in these years, and then to set those bars lower.
Thank you. Now I've been, Monty has his hand up. So Monty, would you like to?
Thanks, Claire. I've got a question and then state my position. Ken, when this was first presented to us at a previous workshop, under this option, the bars were actually indicated at higher than our required rates increases for the first 3 years. Was that just an accident, or is that the way you're thinking that this would look?
Yes, so thank you for that, Monty. So yes, we would be setting the black bar slightly higher, so reasonably small margin, but slightly higher than what our requirement is. Yeah, just like in the LGCI plus 2 or 3% equation. Yeah, you'd want a little bit of a buffer there that you could live within. But yeah, it would that margin would be we're certainly. I mean, the rates increases in those first 3 years are quite a bit higher than what we normally contemplate. So we certainly wouldn't be putting a big margin in there. It would be a pretty small margin that we would provide. Does that answer your question?
It exactly answers my question, but that bit of it I disagree with. So my position is that we take option 2, that the first 3 years, the rates limit is set at our forecast rates requirement, but I wouldn't add a margin above that. I would just state it as that, because these are very significant rises. And the LTP is our contract with the community, basically, that this is what we're going to rate you, and this is what we're going to deliver. So I would do them to our forecast requirement. And if we fail to deliver, then we're held to account on that. And I would be very happy to be held to account to that. But I can't see a point adding a margin over and above that myself. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Monty. That is noted. I mean, obviously that needs to be subject to further discussion, but yes, your point is well noted.
Thanks, Mike. Now I've got Liz. Thanks, Liz.
Yeah, look, thank you. I probably 100% agree with Monty on this one. So I want to be really transparent about what we're rating for. And number 2 for me feels right, because I think that it's probably going to achieve what Roger wants too, and that's that complete accountability and transparency to everybody. So I, again, don't really like the idea of the extra margin. I think I prefer to just, whatever our plan is, let's stick to it. Simple as that.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Mike and then Philip.
Thanks for the chair. Just a question though, Ken, around the buffer, around the margin. So if we just stick to the hard and fast, and I've got no issue with option 2 either, but we know that projects historically coming over, and is that really what this margin is sort of to allow for a little bit? Just a simple yes or no? Yeah.
Yes, generally a margin is to allow for a level of unpredictability, because any estimate is an estimate, and for whatever reason, and there are multiple reasons why an estimate might not translate to reality. Yeah, that's what a margin is.
So based on the history of sitting around this table, we'd almost inevitably, with our current methodology, go over what we set. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Just with our current methodology of how we do business.
Yeah, look, that probably isn't the case. So generally, actually, with a bit of a historical viewpoint here, generally we would set a level for a rates increase in an LTP, and then generally when we come back with an annual plan, we would actually we'd actually lower the bar. That is what the situation has been up until very recent times. Where we have been dealing with extraordinary inflation and extraordinary, extraordinary rapid and great magnitude increases in interest rates, etc. Yeah, prior to that, we would always come back and the bar would actually be quite noticeably lower. But but we can't guarantee that.
I'll just ask one more question. Just think I don't ask any more. So if projects went over, right, and we set a hard bar or a hard rate that we're going to rate for. So if they go over, is our option to reduce the scope, find more revenue, or simply go over? In which case there'd be a note, and we'd have to explain why. So we've still got some options. We don't, that would be around this table. We might have to bring some scopes back or whatever, or we might have to underscope and not quite do everything we need to do, and give ourselves a bit of a buffer at the starting point rather than the contract point. All right, thanks for that. I support option 2 then.
Thank you, Mike. Now, Philip and then Liz again.
Well, good now.
Oh, okay,
Just really briefly, I'm more in support of option 2.
of option 2. Okay, thank you. Now, Roger has raised his hand again. Roger?
Yeah, just a clarification. If we did go with that increased cap and we did exceed it for the reasons that Mike suggested there, then we would similarly, as in option 1, be non-compliant and have to report against that in LTP and annual reports. Isn't that correct?
So yes and no. I mean, we wouldn't necessarily need to be non-compliant. I mean, if we've had some increases, particularly at annual plan rate setting time, I mean, there could be a real focus on doing something that means that we don't end up non-compliant. So this could drive us to a situation where we live within the parameter that is set. I mean that is to be fair, that is the whole point of actually setting these limits across time, is to provide some predictability to the community, to provide an accountability mechanism. So yes, we would I would have thought around this table, there would be a focus on living within whatever parameter had been set in the LTP, despite the contextual things that may have arisen and made that compliance a challenge.
You see, I don't like that, because what you're saying is that if we set an increased limit and there is a chance for whatever reason that is exceeded, and you're suggesting that it's not necessarily non-compliant, and then we don't become accountable to the ratepayer. And I think that's a real risky scenario to accept.
No, sorry, to be fair, Roger, I was not suggesting that at all. I was actually probably suggesting exactly the opposite of that. I was suggesting that there would probably be an emphasis within this chamber of actually reducing the amount of what the rates increase would need to be in order to actually live within the live within the cap that we had set. And if we couldn't do that, that is when we would have to indicate non-compliance. But like I'm saying, I would have thought there would be significant effort to live within the parameter that had been set in the LTP.
Yeah,
Yes,
it sounds a little bit like a TUI ad to me, I'm afraid. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Roger and Ken. I mean, to summarise, I understood that there was consensus about choosing option 2, but that the limit that's set doesn't have a buffer set into it, okay, that we're committed to sticking to that. And so as we go through like year 1 and year 2, when we come to our annual plan situation, is more likely to be direction around the table to make sure that we can stay within that limit that's been set within the LTP. So now I hope that's an accurate summary, and I'm comfortable with that. So I've got nods around the table. So is that enough of a direction for you, Ken? Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Okay, cool. All right. So should we move on to
All
the
right.
next?
Yes, so we are now moving on from the financial strategy. At least I think we are. If I can get this to work. Not quite sure what's happening here.
It'd be quite helpful if we could have a page number as well in our pack that you're going to be speaking
We've gone too
to.
far. Yes.
I recognise
Yeah,
that. I
financing.
recognise that. Here we go. I think that's on page
it
17.
doesn't seem to be moving.
Yeah, page 17.
Right, yeah. So moving on now from financial strategy, thank you for that direction to the revenue and financing policy. So look, for the 3 policies that we are covering today, I will just do a quick context slide, and then I'll hand over to Yolanda to talk through the detail. So this one is the revenue and financing policy, and and like I say, the context of that. So look, a revenue and financing policy is, it is a relatively complex policy. It is when you ultimately see this policy, it's quite a significant number of pages, and that policy effectively what it does is it works through all of the functions of council, so all of the services, all the activities that we deliver, and basically what it does is it determines what the appropriate funding sources are for each of those specific functions. So I do have the words up there. It's all about who pays for what and how they pay for it. Okay, it's that's exactly what the revenue and financing policy is all about. What it is designed to do, this policy is, as the slide says, is to provide predictability and certainty on funding sources and levels. And what it relies on is a 2-step process that is quite clearly set out in the Local Government Act to determine what the appropriate funding source for each function is. And look, the way this really works is that there's a whole bunch of considerations. We haven't put them up on the screen, but look, I guess some of the key aspects and what you will really see coming through it is if this is a function that's all about or largely about private benefit, then generally that where you'll land in regard to funding that function and the revenue and financing policy is a fee and a charge. Okay, so look, like probably one of the spaces that you will see this is things like animal control activity. So look, we provide a regulatory function in terms of animal control. It's all about private benefit. actually there's a lot of this is about exacerbator pays. The people who own these dogs should be paying for this. So so therefore fees and charges. Planning consents, building consents. Obviously there's homeowners or businesses building buildings or subdividing properties. That's largely about private benefit. So therefore the best mechanism for that activity being funded is a fee and charge on the people who are applying for those planning and those building consents. Okay, then we have things that provide. Actually, I'll jump to the third one actually first up. So whole of district public benefit. And look, a couple of great examples of that are things like our roading network would be a great example of that. We cannot restrict who drives on the roads of our district. They are available to all and sundry to enjoy the benefits that those roads provide in terms of them getting around our district. That would be one example. Another example would be our parks and reserves, our open spaces, our playgrounds, etc. Again, we cannot restrict those to certain members of the public. They are freely available to all. So look, those would be great examples of where that function is providing a whole of district public benefit. And in that case, generally the funding mechanism is general rates, which we levy on capital value, a uniform annual general charge, or perhaps in some cases a targeted rate for those activities. Okay, so public benefit lends itself, can't lend itself to fees and charges because we haven't got discrete users actually using those things. It relies on the rates. And then I guess the other element of that is where it is a community public benefit, so all can enjoy, all can use, etc. But look, it's very much more focused on that very local community. That's where you tend to use a targeted rate that is set just on the cohort of ratepayers who live in that community. And perhaps an example of that might be our rural halls. So our rural halls, in certain parts of our district, we probably don't have people travelling right across the district to use a hall, several kilometres away from them. But anyone who is within close range of that hall is obviously able to enjoy those benefits. So it would be a targeted rate. On that particular community. Okay, so look, that's essentially the general outcomes that you get. But look, there is a list. There's about a list of about 6 or 8 things that need to be considered in determining who pays for what and how they pay for it. That is really just illustrative. And then the only other thing to draw to your attention, because it is a requirement that the revenue and financing policy address this in some way, is that it must that last bullet point there, it must support the principles set out in the preamble to the Te Ture Whenua Māori Act 1993. Look, that is, and in fact will be. You could probably park this a little bit because we are coming later in this workshop to actually looking at our rates for emissions policy, where this is much more relevant. But look, there will be a reference certainly in this act in terms of how we not in this act, in this policy, as to how we address that legislative requirement. Okay, so look, that is the content. So I will now hand over to Yolanda to take you through a bit more of the detail.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. So we did review this policy as part of the 2434 LTP development. And at the time, that review was focused on the funding model for our district museums, Te Arawai, as well as the Cambridge Town Hall. At the time, the direction was to proceed with the policy as is, to not make any changes. For this round, we've analysed our fees and charges revenue against the policy parameters set that we want to recover through fees and charges. And it's highlighted a couple of areas where our revenue projections fall outside the policy parameters. this is where we now need your guidance as to whether we increase fees, and we'll step through those areas, or whether we amend the public versus private range, private range set out in the policy. So if we look at, sorry, doesn't matter. I need to do it there. Apologies. So what we did here was we took the draft revenue figures for each of these activities within council, and then compared that against the cost that that particular activity incurs to fulfill the function. You'll see in the second column, there's a revenue and finance policy range set out, and then the green or red blocks are measured against that lower limit in the policy range. So based on this, we focused our attention on the animal control, cemeteries, recycling, and roading, which we'll just step through in each of these in the next slides. For animal control, the team has gone back and looked at all possible revenue they can generate from this activity. They've re-looked at their cost structure, and based on that, in the first line, they've said that that is the revenue targets they can set for themselves. So that is, for instance, from 24 to 25 to year one, that's a 13% increase in revenue. The next line is, should we stick to the 60%, 60 to 70% generated from fees and charges? That would mean they need a 24% increase in their revenue, which would, and we stepped through this in the memo, it would mean significant increases for dog registrations across the district. Our recommendation is to increase the fees in line with what the team has advised. So what they've said is $3 per dog in year one, $3 per dog in year two, and then $5 per dog in year three. To amend the pricing in line with that, as well as change the range from 60 to 70% to 55 to 65%, noting the community well-being considerations also taken into account. I think we can just pause there, Chair, and just have a discussion.
Thanks, Yolanda. Okay, so, and just that community wellbeing is that the feedback from enforcement or animal control rather, was that if we increase it quite a bit, you're going to get people who are not going to play the game, and it's going to be more difficult to try and get them to register their dogs. We'll have more complaints and unregistered dogs and things like that. So they feel that this is sort of a measured approach, but it's probably going to get the maximum compliance across the community. Yeah, yes, Ken?
Yes, so Claire, this is one of those situations as well where there's quite significant both private and public benefit. So you know, there is no doubt that that the dog owners themselves should be paying quite a significant share of the costs of this activity. I mean, those people own the dogs. So they are they are essentially contributing to obviously the requirement for council to have this activity. But look, at the same time, to a large extent, there is some real public benefit, obviously, associated with dogs being well controlled in our communities. If they weren't, if they weren't well controlled, then obviously we would have some pretty significant issues in our community. So look, this is one where there is a real mix between the public benefit and the private benefit. It's just a matter of where we draw that line in terms of where the percentage falls.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Now our online community wants to have their say, so I'll give Roger first and then Mike. Over to you, Roger.
Yeah, I'm not a dog on, but anyway, we've got two lines of dollar figures there. The suggested increase of $3 per dog year one, $3 year two, and $5 year three, which of those two lines reflects that increase? The top one or the second one, or the third line?
The top one.
Top one. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. And now Mike.
Oh, thanks, Claire. Hey, I just wanted to say that in this whole revenue and financing policy piece, I thought the staff recommendations were all really sensible. I agree with all of them, so don't bother coming back to me, okay?
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, and I particularly loved that red and green table as well. Okay, so are people oh, sorry, Mike, over to you. Mike Pettit.
Thanks to the chair. You laid out, where does a rural dog have to live? Is it like it used to be, what is it called? Not like a lifestyle block, it was like a large lot, and now it's like a rural true farms, or are they like lifestylers who are now large lot sections? Are they rural or are they town?
Oh, I think Wayne Allen's going to come with the correct answer. Welcome, Wayne.
I'm going to have a stab as well, but I'd need my technical advisor, but I'd imagine it's a farm dog. Question?
A true
rural
farm dog.
A farm dog?
Right, I've got no issue with that then.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just making sure it's not the Queen Street farmers that are paying the reduced rate like me.
The rural dogs went up $53 to $58 this current year. So, there'd be substantive increases if you went with the lower line of 24, 12, 30%, as Yolanda and Ken have pointed out. So, essentially, the average increase per dog, $15, $97. Year 2 would go up to 99. Year 3, another $17, 160. That's on average. Of course, the rural dogs are a lot cheaper. And
Yeah.
there's substantive increases on the urban dogs.
Yeah, no, I guess I was just making sure that their lifestyle wasn't classified as a rural
I'll
dog.
check that. I'll check that, but that would
Right.
be my interpretation.
Well, yeah, it is a workshop, but hey, can we check that? Because if it is, you go.
The answer was lived on a rural residential block and the dog is rural. Is that what you said?
I was just saying, isn't it South Wales,
Yeah.
lifestyle block, but dogs don't walk.
All right, well, all right. So when outside of this workshop, I think there's some money to be made there because, I've got a dog, so I obviously pay this rural rate, which is pretty much, it's like half the rate of people in town. So a rural residential property, I think we should be classifying as residential. Might have lost a few votes on that, but I can get over that. Like rural residential that's not really rural. If it's a proper, if it's not a working dog, you should pay. So maybe, I'm just saying, maybe there's a bit more revenue we could discuss around that.
That's a great point, Councillor Pettit. And could I just leave that with you, Wayne, and your team to come back to us on it?
Yeah, we'll obviously come back with the fees and charges review, so we'll have a look at that point in time.
Yes, if you use your microphone, Steph.
Yes.
Thank you.
Get it, totally. Wayne, can I just ask, would that be something that's set by national legislation, or is that something that can be defined by individual councils?
My view would be it's set by individual councils.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. So where have we got with this direction that you're wanting, where we're going to reduce? Oh, I'm sorry about that. I've been informed that Lou and Philip are waiting to ask a question. I'm sure, Philip, you were first and then Lou. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, thanks. Just two quick things on what Councillor Pettit brought up. I mean, rural pet dogs do come into town and use the parks and reserves in town too. But I mean, I don't know if this, just my question, I don't know if this is the appropriate workshop for it, but you mentioned about behaviour of dogs. With the last review that we had, there was going to be signage, just daylight saving hours and things like that with dogs on leads and not on leads, and it's been well over a year now. We still haven't got any of these signage. I have brought it up with Cal and Brad. It seemed like one department wasn't working with the other department, or
Just on that, Philip, I don't know
Probably
if
not
that's,
the-
no, I don't think that's
No.
within the scope of this workshop, but you could follow it up outside the workshop, I think.
okay.
Is that the only points you're, yeah, cool. All right, okay, over to you, Lou.
Yeah, it's a very interesting discussion. I just come from a different area altogether where we have dogs that are actually employed in the community. They're in an urban environment, but they're companion dogs. And there's a lot of people that actually have these people for dogs for a specific reason. And we also have those, of course, for those that are blind, everyone sees that. But there are others that need these dogs for that sort of thing. Are they entitled covered with legislation? Because really, in a lot of cases, we actually raise the funds for them in the welfare that I work with and supply these dogs, and yet they could get these significant fees. How do they actually come about? And what is the scenario with that, Wayne?
I just need to check that. There's so many different variations in terms of reductions in fees and the like. But I'd need to check.
Because the situation I'm dealing with 2 or 3 at the moment, and one specific person wouldn't have the income absolute to actually pay a full fee. It's something where and you'd have to have some sort of out or some
I think there might
accommodation for that type of situation.
Okay, so it looks like, Wayne, you've got another piece of work to investigate for us and bring it back.
Yeah. But in general, you're happy with us to lower the policy limit?
Yeah, so we're just looking for some direction now, just on changing that policy to reduce the recovery of the expenses to 55 to 65. Are you happy with that reduction proposed? I'm seeing nods around the table, so I'm taking that, and online as well, so I'm taking that there's consensus there. Hope that's helpful for you, Yolanda. Oh, no, here we got Mike.
Yeah, hey, you got my consensus, but we actually want to give a big increase to really cover some more costs here. We're choosing not to do it and basically lowering the bright line. But we should be working towards the 65%, whatever it was we just reduced. Like, I don't want us to lose the fact that let's just keep the increases coming to get to where this should be, because otherwise everyone's subsidising this activity, and that's actually not fair. So let's just not lose sight over the next 9 years. I've just tuck it away and just increase it to get to where we want to get to, as in a fair time frame.
Thanks, Mike. And now Dale.
Tautoko, Councillor Pettit, but I do tautoko the general consensus, because I know at Waikato District Council, I'm paying more there to register a dog than I am here. So, kia ora rā.
Thank you. And now I've got Steph with a message from Susan, because she's not able to speak, but she just wants to give the meeting some information.
So Susan has said her example is she's got a working dog on their farm, and the neighbours on rural residential sections have pets, but they are all considered rural dogs according to the website. But the rationale to date has been that urban roaming dogs are the major issue, not rural dogs.
What dog's the exception?
Except for Mike Pettit's dog, which is the exception. I hope that you can hear that, Susan. Anyway, so just, her contribution.
So I hope that hasn't changed the consensus that at the moment we're happy to go for the reduction in the ban to 55 to 65, bearing in mind Councillor Pettit's desire to, over time, try and raise that back up. Is that all right with everyone? Oh, Liz.
Yeah. And look, I believe if you own a dog, or even just through a lot of the other examples, probably, I just think that user pays. I do really want to shift that. I think that's fair. I think it's fairer.
Yeah.
I hope that you're happy with that, Yolanda. You've got enough direction from us.
Thank
you. All right.
The next group we need to look at is cemeteries. So the team has done a benchmarking exercise against other cemeteries in the Waikato. So what you see in the first line is the revenue budgets that's currently included in the draft LTP budgets that you've seen. The team is suggesting a 10% increase in the fees associated with cemeteries in year one. After that, it remains unchanged. If we look at the cost recovery, we are proposing a 7% increase in year two and a 29% increase in year three. Year three does jump up quite a bit because there's a lot of capacity development, capital works in there, as well as land acquisition to enhance capacity within our district. We, as officers, are suggesting that we increase the fees so that the user pays for the service.
Thank you, Yolanda. So what are the thoughts of people around the table? Yes, Dale.
I'm a little bit uncomfortable with this as someone who deals with death a lot, and the increasing charges that it has upon minority groups, especially. And I understand that our particular urupa and cemeteries, you can only bury on certain days. So I'm just not comfortable with raising, because I think it's expensive to die in our cemetery, for it to be interred in our cemeteries. I know there's always a cost, but this one is just not sitting well with me.
Okay, thanks for that feedback, Dale. Yes, Mike.
Yeah, it's not one of these things where you really want to get in early. But, year 3, it's going to be a lot more expensive to pass away than year 2, isn't it? It's just this whole, I guess, looking at these fees and charges and just going back and just where do we want them and just trying to smooth it as we're going through, because it's a 66% increase from where we're currently sitting over the next sort of 3 or 4 years. It is quite a bit, but it does ramp up significantly in year 3. So again, I've got no issue with some of these because this is the cost, but it's just trying to smooth things out a little bit. And just any thoughts on that, on trying to smooth this rather than sort of 10%, 7 and 29.
Do you, Yolanda, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, we'll have to have a look at what the impact would be. Potentially year 2 would then be higher than 7% if you want to smooth the impact in year 3. If we look at the red and green table, you will see that cemeteries are really low in comparison to the minimum level that the Revenue and Finance Policy currently requires. So the other option is then to drop that range again to maybe 55 or 50%. But I think that contradicts the benefit allocation principle.
The only thing here is, if we look at the last one, it's optional to have a dog. At the end of the day, this one's not optional. We're all going to sort of use the service. So, maybe just have a look at it. I mean, it's just in year 3, it's just going to be quite a big shock, basically a 30% not payroll, a 30% increase in this service is just going to be difficult.
Yeah, I take your points there. Ange.
Ask a question, sorry. Why does it go?
Oh, could you press, you need a microphone, thanks.
Oh, sorry.
So people online can.
Sorry, I'm probably just a dummy, but why does it go 10, 7, 30 or 29?
Yeah, so 10 is what the team is suggesting. 7 is what is required in year 2 to get to the minimum policy band. As I said, there's a lot of expenses hitting us in year 3 in relation to the cemeteries, and that's why the fee needs to increase to cost recover in line with the policy. Yep.
And just through the chair, what that big jump of 29% is, the extra costs that Yolanda's talked about, is it's development of further cemetery land, because we are getting at the point where we do need to develop further land across a number of our cemeteries.
So following on from what Mike's saying, seeing as we know that is coming, is there not, you can't just pull a percentage of that back and put it into that year 2?
It's a smooth it over those.
So that it does that, or does it throw things
Yep.
too out of whack too much? Oops.
I think it's me. Yes, I will have a look at the smoothing and whether we can pull it back into the green with smoothing it. I think we'll report back then at the next workshop when we discuss fees and charges.
Thanks, Yolanda. Also, I'm aware that cemetery, I suppose, management plan or review that was done, it assumed that the land would be required in those later years. but I don't think there was a sense check or some in-depth analysis done whether or not that was actually the case, because, you know, there's techniques you can use to, you know, I suppose either try and incentivize more ashes so that it's the full-size plots that need the land, and whether or not there are also different ways that the plots could be arranged to actually, get more plots, I suppose, yielded from the land that we had. And I mean, I don't know if that work has been done either, but whether or not but that's only going to delay the fateful day anyway. I mean, I suppose we've got to plan for additional land anyway over time. I can see Sally Sheedy wants to come and contribute to the conversation. Thanks, Sally.
Kia ora, everyone. Just don't really want to dive into detail because I don't think it's appropriate in this forum, but in terms of the development costs that we're talking about is around furthering that work to identify those needs. So we've done that high level. There is funding included to do some more work to really confirm what the development expansion needs are that are required. So what you've mentioned would be part of that work, but essentially we've got our key cemeteries that were identified that are running out of space, and that is the need for more space for burials to meet our legislative requirements.
Thanks, really appreciate that, Sally. So Yolanda, you have said that you'll do a bit more work on it and bring it back. So cool, thank you. Oh, I've got Lou would like to say something. Yep.
Just a quick question, looking at this, I noticed that the figures are only on full term, or actually a full interment, but are these figures going to go right across all the spectrums? That is, you know, eco burials, it's going to, you know, with a plot, whether, you know, they're going to have exactly the same increases, everybody. That's for the plots, you know, for, you know, ash interment, all of that.
Yes.
All of it will be the
Yes.
same. Yeah, that's just what I wanted, it's clarification. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to the next item.
The next item is recycling. So it is a really small portion of the bigger activity. So currently it's set at between 5 and 15%. We are requesting a reduction from 2 to 12%. This revenue is mainly generated, it's 27,200 a year. It is mainly generated through bin replacement. So what we've indicated there is the fee that we're currently charging in 24-25. Then we have the suggested fee for 25-26. And then we've looked at if we need to stick within the current policy parameters, what that fee would need to look like. You will see that in order to reach that, it is significantly higher than what we actually pay for a bin. And we are of the opinion that we should just be recovering our cost. So therefore, we are the suggested fee at 83 and 85 respectively, and also a reduction in the policy parameters from 2 to 12%.
Okay, all right. What are people's thoughts on that suggestion? It's a pretty minor item. Yeah, looks like. Thumbs up on that. Yeah. I've got Roger online with a question. Roger, over to you. Sorry,
No, it's just a question. I mean, I agree with just the cost recovery basis, and I just recall an instance where a bin was actually broken by the collector, the van collecting, and just left with its lid askew. And so I think cost recovery is fair, rather than increasing the price to that level. Yep.
Yeah, all right. I think there's pretty much, we're happy with what's proposed. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The next group is roading. So again, this is a really small proportion of the bigger activities. The majority of the activity is funded through district-wide funding through the UAGC and general rates, which, as Ken outlined earlier, that it reflects the public good associated with our roads. There is a smaller component of the cost that we recover through fees and charges. The team, again, they analyze the entire activity and all the costs associated with processing requests from users, and we are suggesting a reduction from 5 to 10 to 2 to 10% within the policy.
Okay. People happy with that? Yeah, I can't see anyone objecting, so that looks like it'll go through. Thank you.
The next change is it's not to do with fees and charges, so you won't find that on the table. It's a further suggestion or recommendation that I just want to put to you. Currently, within our revenue and finance policy, we have a small portion of our 3 water activities funded through general rates. So within the 3 activities, it's about between 2.5 and 10% of the activity. In line with the principles of local waters done well, where all our water activities need to be ring fenced, we are suggesting removing the district-wide component and moving everything into targeted rates. So it will not affect the overall rates requirement that we've had discussions on so far. You will see it show up when we look at indicated properties, for instance, because there would have been a portion in the general rate. Now you would see it in that separate line that we show you what is the increase in the water activities. So we feel this aligns with local government direction and truly ring fence the activity.
Thanks, Yolanda. Any comments? I do have I'm interested what it might show up as, the targeted rate amount compared to it being charged as a district-wide rate, like per connection or something.
So
it'd be quite good to understand what that might
at
look
this
like.
stage, I don't have it. We're still working through the detail. What I will do then is when we come back with the indicated properties, I'll just do that comparison so you can clearly see.
Thank you. And Monty has a question online. Monty, over to you.
Sorry, I know I said I wasn't going to, but Yolanda's just triggered a question in me. If it goes to be a targeted rate, is it going to be a district-wide targeted rate, not just water-connected targeted rate?
It'll be water connected. So if you're connected to the service or be utilising the service, then it'll be added to that cost.
Okay, so does that mean we're implying that there is no benefit at all to a non-connected person for there to be water?
So Monty, yes, we are implying that. And in fact, actually, this is one that has been challenged from time to time, and it actually has been a little bit hard to actually justify the public good element. Water and wastewater services. I mean, it is very much a benefit for that connected community. So look, in my view, this is landing in the right place. Yeah.
And I've also got a comment that Steph would like to make.
Oh, actually, it's a question and it's showing my newness, but it's an important question for me. So is our policy not an equalisation one across the district where we're all sharing the cost, or is that moving towards more of a user pays type approach, Ken? Can you help me understand the background principles to that decision, please?
Yeah, so look, so Steve, great question. So look, water and wastewater are funded district-wide, but obviously only in that, well, other than this little aberration, funded only by the connected communities. So whether you're in Kiki or whether you're in Leamington, you're paying exactly the same amount for your water and for your wastewater. So we equalise it across the district for those for those activities and for the connected communities that are enjoying those activities. So that's probably the first thing. In regard to the user pays element, so of course water, we have had universal water metering in now for a number of years. So in that sense, it's user pays. You are the connected community in the water space are paying for their water according to the volume that they are consuming. So it's through a rate mechanism, a water by meter rate, but it is user pays in the sense that you're paying for what you're enjoying. In regard to the wastewater activity, however, it is a targeted rate. It's a uniform targeted rate across the whole connected community. We don't apply a volumetric thing. I mean, some councils, of course, do actually apply volumetric even in the wastewater space, and they do that as a percentage of the water consumed. We don't. We have never had that to date here in Waipa.
Thanks, Ken. That's helpful. Thank you.
So I would like to, I suppose, follow that through a bit more, because you said it had been challenged that people who aren't connected to water services still get some kind of benefit, even if it's at a high level. Is that my understanding? Like you mentioned, it had been challenged, Ken? And because what I'm thinking is like that was behind my question as to if we could see at the indicator property level, what that impact is going to be, because you could argue that it might still be appropriate for councils to contribute to a water entity, like a regional water entity, that I suppose district-wide or regional-wide sort of high-level benefit of managing the water services and not tying it so specifically to just connected properties. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, I mean, in terms of it being challenged, so clear, it's a very small amount that was coming through, this public benefit space, and therefore being levied on all ratepayers. So it was relatively small. However, it was visible in the sense that that when you when a ratepayer gets their rates assessment notice at the start of every financial year, actually I think it is only on the rates assessment notice, it does indicate what the general rate and what the UAGC is contributing to, and of course it just itemises on the water and wastewater. So of course when you have a ratepayer who is not connected to water and wastewater, they're saying, hey, why are we paying for water and wastewater? Despite the fact that the amount is very, very small, it's certainly been identifiable there. So it has led to questions in the past. And look, as I said before, in this meeting, it is kind of hard to defend. But of course the offset of that is that it's a relatively small amount in that regard. I mean, there's even arguments that that potentially those ratepayers might come into town and they may use a public toilet or whatever. Obviously that public toilet is connected to water supply and wastewater supply. But look, the argument is fairly tenuous. So look, I am as an officer in terms of providing advice through. I'm reasonably, in fact, I am comfortable with what is being proposed here.
Okay, look, I'm happy with that, and I just thought, Monty asked the question, and it got me thinking. But I appreciate the explanation that you've given. Thanks. Okay, so back to you, Yolanda. How are we going?
So in terms of the revenue and finance policy, our next check-in with you is the 3rd of December, where we'll bring the revised draft revenue and finance policy with track changes, so you can see all these changes. And then we'll also at that same workshop bring the scheduled fees and charges for the next 3 years.
Thank you. We can't wait. Yeah. All right.
But wait, there is more. So there's still a couple of, sorry, Councillor. There's still 2 more policies to talk about. So look, the first of those other 2 policies is remission and postponement of rates and water charges policy. So look, and just in terms of the context here, so legislatively we are absolutely required to have a remission and postponement of rates on Māori freehold land policy. That is an absolute essential that we must have that. And then on a voluntary basis, we can also choose to have a rates remission and rates postponement policy. In fact, actually, when it says a rates remission, effectively effectively there's a number of rates remissions that we do and we roll them into the same space. So that bit is voluntary. However, it's only voluntary in the sense that in terms of whether we have it, we can't actually offer postponements and we can't actually offer rates remissions unless we have a policy that actually expressly provides for that. So from that angle, it is pretty important. Obviously, we have them. So look, what we do is we roll them all into effectively the one policy. And this policy essentially, as it says in those last couple of bullet points there, it does provide some options for ratepayer relief. Some of that is around financial hardship, and certainly the postponement policy is all about addressing financial hardship. But look, in other cases, it's all around public good associated with particular properties, very definitively prescribed and provided for in the policy. But it'll be one of those two things that drive the remissions and postponements that are offered.
So just highlighting a couple of changes, you would have received a track changed version of this policy in your information. So we clarify how the policy reflects the principle of the Te Ture Whenua Māori Act preamble. So I appreciate that, as you indicated at the start of this workshop, you might not have had time to work through this. If you have any feedback, you can. We would gladly hear about it and see how we can incorporate that. Three other changes that I just want to highlight is as part of the remission of penalties for water and rates, we currently have a 7-day period. If it's after due date and you make payment within 7 days, your penalty could be remitted. We are proposing a change from 7 days to 14 days. What we've seen is the level of service changes from the National Post Office has meant that our ratepayers receive those penalty letters too late. So it's outside their 7 days. So we're proposing extending that. The other change we're proposing is currently we have, if you do have a penalty because you paid after due date, and you do pay within the 7 days, we then look back 3 years. And if you haven't had a penalty in the last 3 years, then you can have that penalty remitted. What we are proposing is that clean record test be reset at the start of each rating year, meaning each ratepayer, for whatever reason, has one chance every year to have their penalty remitted. The other change for remissions of water bills, especially if it's, specifically if it is relating to a water leak, all we are proposing is putting a 6-month time period in which that remission request need to be submitted and considered by council. The policy does make provision for extraordinary circumstances outside that 6 months that it still can be considered by the manager of finance. And then just a note for elected members, you've asked for this along the way. We will, as part of our consultation documentation, have increased visibility of this policy to our community and see how we can assist them through this period.
Thanks, Yolanda. So I think those are great suggestions, especially the remission of penalties. It's going to make it easier for people to get a penalty, to get that remitted, especially if they've just got a couple of days or, only 1 year to show they've got a good record and things. I'm happy with that. Other people comfortable with that? Yeah, cool. That looks good. Okay.
We just need to flip one. Okay, so the last policy in the pack, and again, this one, so I guess has got quite a bit of technicality to it, the Treasury Management policy. But look, at the very high level, legislatively, we must have both a liability management policy and an investment management policy. For our purposes, the way we do this is we roll both those things together as two subparts of something that we call the Treasury Management policy. But look, at the end of the day, what this is designed to do is to to set the parameters around the way that we manage our investments and debt. That's why we have this policy, so that you as governors set the rules and then officers work within those rules. This is an area where we are advised by Earl White of Bancorp. He's been our long time Treasury advisor. So essentially these changes that Yolanda is going to run through in a few minutes, these have essentially been advised by Earl. We've asked him to have a look at the policy and make some suggestions, and this is essentially what he has come back with.
Almost there. So the one change that we are suggesting is just aligning the debt to revenue borrowing limit between our Treasury policy, our financial strategy, as well as our LGFA covenant. So you'll see that's that one thread throughout. The other suggestion, because we have higher external debt at this stage, the suggestion of changing the outstanding debt subject to refinancing over the next 12 months from 70 to 120 million, just to give us some flexibility within the portfolio. Then decreasing our maximum term of external debt from the current 20 years in the policy to 12 years, noting that the maximum term we've borrowed from the LGFA is 10 years, not 20 years. So decreasing that to 12 years, again, to give us some flexibility within the portfolio, unless there's a different term approved by council, which we will then bring to council for approval. Similarly, any hedging instruments like interest rate swaps would have the same maximum period as 12 years. A note Earl did make is that the market price anything with a period longer than 12 months at a premium, so hence staying below the 12 years so that we get the best price from the LGFA. Then just including a reference in the policy that asset sales could be used to reduce debt levels in addition to what we've previously had. That is also consistent with all the other communication that we've had along the way on the financial strategy. We've also made changes to the counterparty limits. The counterparty is basically just someone we do business with in terms of lending or investing. So we've removed one of the counterparties is in equity investments, for instance, that with our previous policy allowed. We don't have the capacity within our financial strategy at this stage, so we're suggesting removing that and just making other tweaks. Again, you have a track changed version of this policy in the documents. So there are some others, that's just to make the wording clearer.
Thank you, Yolanda. So it's set out there, the things that are proposed to be changed. Any comments? People happy with those or have got concerns? I see, Monty, you have your hand up, so over to you, please.
Thanks, Claire. Ken, I just need you to explain something to me. Page 52, which is page 7 of the draft Treasury Management Policy. Those new words at the top about counterparty risk. Can you explain that to me?
Yes, I've heard you, Monty. Sorry, I'm just identifying the page. So top of page 52, you say, in terms of the agenda?
52 on the agenda, 7 on the
Yes.
policy.
Yes, okay, no, I can.
The new words in purple, just explain to me what that means.
Okay, no, I have seen that. So this is about credit risk management, entering into hedging transactions, and putting some criteria around the credit rating of those institutions. Any exposure related to such transactions is added to counterparty risk as detailed in the following table, table 2, which is the main counterparty table. The exposure is calculated as the marked, or the mark to market value of the hedge if it is in the money for the council, or nil if it is in the bank's favour. All right. Oh boy, that's quite technical. So yeah, so I can appreciate the concern. Is it that last sentence that is throwing you when it's talking about
It's
in the
not
money?
throwing me. I just don't understand it. Can you explain?
Don't understand it? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Look, so we and actually, I could probably assist a little bit by telling you that that we actually don't do a lot of hedging these days. Thank goodness. So although these words are in the policy, we're not actually probably doing a lot of it. But look, often in terms of risk, or certainly interest rate risk. We would put a hedging mechanism in place to kind of fix the interest rate. And generally, when you've got that sort of thing, you need to, on an annual basis, do a market value of the hedge, and you determine whether it's in the money. In other words, are we being advantaged here by the fact that we've put this hedge arrangement in place, or are we out of the money in terms of it's to our detriment? So look, that is. Yeah, that's sort of what that is about in terms of the requirement for a mark-to-market value,
Hey, look,
I
it
guess it's.
seemed to me like it was the wrong way around, but take this offline because I know it's super technical. But
yes,
explain
okay,
it to me
we
later
can.
when you've had a chance. I'm happy.
Okay.
In fact, I'd like to jump in there as well and just say maybe it could be reworded in plain
Yes,
English.
to make
so
it plainer.
Rather than take it offline, just so that it's in the policy.
Yes.
And people that read it can understand the policy without having to be some sort of treasury aficionado or something.
No, that's fine. And I mean, if I could just say, look, it's probably not helpful to be talking about in the money and, the converse of that is out of the money. That is obviously a financial expert would use those sorts of terms, but probably not helpful in a document that is more for general consumption. So we can throw that back, I think, at Earl in terms of a better wording there.
Can I just suggest you could throw it back to Earl, but you might want to get somebody who can communicate these concepts just to have a quick look through that policy, Ken, and make sure that any Treasury speak is written in a way that a person that wants to pick up this and read it can understand it. I think it's really important that we write our documents in a way that are easily understandable. I know they're highly technical concepts, but perhaps asking Treasury management people to write Treasury management policies might need another lens on them. Thank you.
Okay, noted. Thank you.
Any other questions? I've got a question that's whether or not a circumstance might actually be covered by this Treasury policy or not. So if we were in the situation where we wanted to enter into a public-private partnership, which is something we might contemplate, like with our water services and things like that, would that be something that would need to be set out in this policy to say these are the parameters within which we'd operate? Or would it be a standalone policy so it doesn't have to be covered in this?
Look, I'm not sure it would be in here because this is more talking about well, I suppose it depends how the thing is structured. I mean, certainly if we were taking some sort of ownership stake in a joint venture arrangement or something, that might need to be provided in here. Very much would depend on the nature of the arrangement. But look, what this is about is managing debt and managing investments. So
I think that's quite helpful.
Yes.
That's good. I did pick up a few inconsistencies, or I just got particular questions. Can I just send my annotations through to you on those? Because they're pretty.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So just gathering our thoughts. Those are the changes that are proposed. Doesn't look like I've got any people that are really worried about it. They seem comfortable with it. So consensus that those things are fine? Yep, cool, excellent. I hope that's good, Yolanda. Yeah, cool.
Just jump to the next slide, please. Thank you. Awesome. So we will incorporate the changes that we've heard today into the workshop material, or sorry, the relevant policies. And we'll present those back to you at a later date. But for the workshop next week, we will be focused on presenting the development contribution fees. So you've seen the policy, and I guess now at that workshop, we'll be presenting the other side of the equation, which is obviously the fees. We will be presenting the draft budget, subject to a few minor amendments, and then providing you the full suite of revised indicator properties. And then on the 26th of November, we'll be presenting a draft infrastructure strategy and the performance measures. I do note from today, we have a couple of items to add into the parking lot as well. And I guess also for anybody listening online, if you would like to look at the agenda or the documents that were presented today, these are now available online through Council's website. Happy to take questions, just noting that we haven't really had a discussion on the timeline and parking lot. So if there's anything in there you're concerned about or want to ask questions about, happy to take those as well.
Thank you, Melissa. I've got a few questions about the parking lot. Yeah. So I'm just trying to see what pages those are.
Page 57 of diligent.
Yeah, so at the bottom of page 57, there's an item there about the Holmes Garage, and it says it's in progress and the time this work is ongoing. Yeah, I'm not sure, is that the case? And because there's also another item, I think, on the next page about it. I thought at the moment it was unlikely to be in, that's all. It does say that work with the Community Board and the Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, so I didn't know whether or not those needed to be updated. And there's another item on the next page, the first item too, about the TA concept plan review and stuff like that. So they're all connected. Yeah.
Would you like me? So I guess with respect to Holmes Garage, I will need to reach out to David Varco about that one.
Okay, that's great. And yeah, and then the other item was on the same page, but down probably 2/3. There's a big fat line about the DCs for each water, wastewater and stormwater growth cell. And it says this is in progress, but in actual fact, we were given that information. I would say that's complete now. That's all.
Okay, so we just need to update the parking lot following that. We'll make sure that it's updated for next workshop.
Thank you. Right. So does that bring us to the end of our, Councillor Pettit. Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, I just want to correct something. I mentioned 66% increase for the interments, etc. It's actually 40% over 3 years. So just in case someone's looking at that and going, he doesn't know his maths, at that point I didn't, but I have corrected myself.
I think you've just saved your reputation. All right. Now, I understand that.
Verbal update from Kirsty and Ken, bits and pieces, and then I've got a few things I wouldn't want.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we've come to the end of our agenda for the workshop, but Kirsty would now like to give you a verbal update, Kirsty and Ken, and then Steph would also like a bit of your time. Thank you. So over to you, Kirsty. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou and thank you. So this is a duo act. In full transparency, we'd like to flag to you an emerging issue relating to the LTP and would like to provide a high-level verbal update. We've spoken at length about the unprecedented circumstances in which we are preparing this LTP, so we're not going to traverse those now, but suffice to say that it's incredibly complex. There is a lot of uncertainty and we're doing our very best to make this work in those trying circumstances. We need to acknowledge though that there is much uncertainty, and so with that comes change, and we've flagged to you as we've gone through this process that there are changes
particularly in terms of central government direction, in terms of numbers, and we've flagged, by way of example, 4-month forecasting underway. So we'll be coming back to you in November with numbers. But I'm going to now hand over to Ken to speak about some specific projects where there has been change.
Okay, and look, namely there are two projects. So they're both in the water space. So as part of the work that we're undertaking in regard to projects in the water space, we've identified two projects which have now been reshaped. What those projects are is the Te Awamutu wastewater treatment plant. And look, we are in the space there where that project that was included in our draft budgets at $19 million. Look, the indicative cost of that project now is $48 million. That does actually include quite a considerable contingency, but it has grown from 19 to $48 million, which is a $29 million increase. There is also the Leamington wastewater, or a Leamington wastewater reticulation upgrade project of $9 million that was not in the draft figures we've been provided you up till now. So look, we are still working through the detail of what this means. But look, it's clearly this is a situation where there will be implications for both debt and for rates. So I'll cover those both in turn. So the impact of this is in years 4 and 5, just according to where these contracts, where these projects lie. And so what this does is it does compromise the timing of the step back from reliance on a covenant provision of 3.5 down to 3 times. So we have, we've talked about that in our discussions up till now, that we need the debt covenant to be 3.5 at the start. We'll step down to 3 times. It's going to take us longer to get there because of these two projects. In terms of rates, where it takes us to is a place where the rates increases would need to be higher for years 4 and 5 before returning to a lower figure in years 6 to 9. So, so look, the likely scenario here is that, the higher bespoke limits for years 1, 2 and 3, which we actually talked about at length earlier in this workshop, nothing at all changes there. They remain the same as what we've been talking about. However, we would have to set a higher, and what we're looking to do is set a higher and consistent, so same in both years, a higher and consistent level of increase for years 4 and 5, which is when the main impact on these projects falls. So that would, at this stage, we think that would likely require an LGCI plus 3% limit for those 2 years. And then we return back to the consistent and lower figure over years 6 to 9. And our hope there is that be LGCI plus 2%. Okay, so look, we are bringing you as we've said, a detailed draft budget to an open workshop on the 20th of November. So that's not too far away. We had already signalled in previous workshops that will involve some changes to what has been presented previously. That was largely to take account the outcomes of the 4-month forecasts, which are being done right across the organisation at the moment. So we'd indicated we'd have to come back with the figures. Obviously what we also need to take account of is changes arising from what I've highlighted just now. So we will incorporate, so what you see on the 20th of November will incorporate the 2 changes that I've just talked about, plus anything coming out of the 4-month process, bearing a 4-month reforecast process, bearing in mind there will be some positives in that 4-month reforecast as well, particularly in the early years, as due to timing of capex, etc.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Ken. Now I've got Roger online with his question. So Roger, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Ken, just that increase in the Te Awamutu wastewater treatment plant, just tell me again the figures.
Yes, I can, Roger. So it's going from 19 million to 48 million. So therefore a $29 million increase.
I'm sorry, but the question's got to be asked. How did somebody make such a huge error? That's
just a minute there,
incredible
Roger. I think you might be making an assumption that that is an error. We haven't had any more information yet. Like, we could seek some information to get some context around it. Steph or Dawn are able to help us out there.
Yeah, and now Ken, my understanding though, and tell me if I'm wrong, Dawn, is that the original figures were based on some business case work done 3 years ago. And there's been reviews done of the business cases, am I right, Dawn? So there's been some review work done internally, and that work has been coming through and has only just come to the surface. And so that's the new updated numbers that we're looking at now. So we've only, the team has just brought this to light. We've made a call that it's really important to give you this heads up now and be open and transparent about it, but it's the reworking through revised business cases. But Dawn's at the table, Roger, to talk to that.
Yeah, well, I would like it because, you know, the team did prepare the initial business case. So there must have been either some big errors in the business case or some major change in the specification that actually drove that huge cost increase. I think we just need to be, you know, it's got to be open as to why this has happened.
And they're great questions, Roger. So Dawn, how can you help us here? What information have you got?
Kia ora koutou. So you'll recall that in starting to prepare the 2024 long-term plan, the waters were not going to be included in terms of through to 2030. And so the business cases for projects that were sitting outside of year 1, year 2 were not reviewed. So we're still sitting with the 2021 business case that was based on the 2018 information and investigation in terms of Te Awamutu wastewater treatment plant. So whilst inflation was applied, it hasn't obviously been to the extent that inflation's been experienced over that period as well. So yep, in terms of when business cases, you know, with the change in government direction, business cases activity management plan now required for the 2025 long-term plan, the business cases have been reviewed. This one in particular was sent out to have a more significant look at it in terms of now what we understand around wastewater treatment plants and the level of inflation requirements. It's been much more extensive. It's also identified that some of the underpinning assumptions in the 2018 business case are no longer appropriate in terms of geotech assumptions on the site as to where particular infrastructure was going to be located. So yep, it's absolutely a significant lift. The other understanding is that some of our growth assumptions in terms of the capacity that would be required at the plant by 2030, the growth in Te Awamutu has in fact been greater than the assumptions that underpinned those earlier business cases. So we're looking at possible much more significant capacity requirements than were sort of forecast, I guess, way back in 2018. So yep, absolutely acknowledge in terms of its a significant increase in cost, and more than happy to provide you with that background information, but that's sort of the summary of where we find ourselves.
Yeah. And if you say that this was, you know, in terms of our projections, when the Three Waters was not included in future plans, how confident can we be then that the other business plans that related to huge capital replacement don't have similar kind of errors in them?
Again, I'm just wondering whether or not Dawn or Steph might be the appropriate people to respond to that.
Thank you, councillor. Yep, absolutely. I hear the concern, and you know, it's something in this particular instance, I guess, with our knowledge of Cambridge and the wastewater treatment plant there, that this was one where we where the team looked at the earlier figures and sort of said it did seem quite low. So it kind of stood out in terms of having a look at it. But yeah, no, the fine magnifying glass has gone over all of them, and these are the ones that were highlighted as needing that additional look at. So we're pretty confident that our other projects are right-sized in terms of the level of investment needed.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot for that, Dawn. Yeah, any other questions from any of the other people around the table? Yeah, obviously it's, yeah, not, oh, Steve.
Yeah, no, I think, Roger, this is just, you know, it's come to light only recently and we've put it in front of you really quickly. Dawn and I haven't even had a chance to have a conversation yet about what might be the robust test with some independents to have a look at that Waters work program. And Dawn and I will be having that conversation because you need to have trust and confidence as high as possible in the numbers into the LTP. We're really aware of that. And especially around the big projects. So we'll be having a further conversation because we'll all want to know that we've robustly road tested those numbers. So we hear your question and we completely agree with you. We'll give us some time to contemplate how we might do that and what that looks like. As I say, I haven't even had a chance to talk with the team about that yet.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Steve. And Monty, you've got a question.
Oh, look, Steph has just answered it really. Dawn just finished off saying that the team was pretty confident and yeah, if some more work could be done around that pretty confident to give us a sort of a confidence level would be really good. So it's just what Steph was just saying. I understand risk, I understand uncertainty, but it's also nice to have some idea of the confidence in this LTP going forward, if we want it to be a genuine 10-year plan rather than just series of 1-year plans. So thanks, Steph, like what you said.
Okay, thanks, Monty. Any other comments? Yeah, I was just wondering whether or not there, you know, this has actually arisen because of the processes that we do have underway with checking business cases that I presume, you know, because it's happening in year 4 and 5 and later, that priority had been given to years 1 to 3 to make sure those numbers, yeah, were really robust. And now we're moving on to the other stuff now that we've got capacity to be addressing that. So I'm not seeing it as it's showing that there's been poor performance or a questionable, I suppose, quality assurance, more that now we are focusing on those years further out. And so this is obviously going to bring up, yeah, some discrepancies in those original estimates.
I think you're absolutely right, Claire, and thank you for your appreciation of that. You know, when we're swinging between major policy decisions of how we're approaching things in council, whether it's RMA reforms or water reforms, you know, it really does. This is a great example of how it shows that the energy or focus in the organisation changes quite dramatically, and things that you would think, you know, happen. And sometimes we just don't have the bandwidth. People might think we've got loads and loads of people because those FTE numbers, but actually we run pretty thin on the ground in some teams, and we can't keep doing the work. And you've picked it up perfectly. It's what years were in focus and which weren't. But also, I think it's really important, not only is it important for us to have this, for our ratepayers to have the confidence in the LTP, but actually we also need to have confidence in this information because we're now sharing it in terms of a potential CCO. Yeah. And any potential CCO will want clarity around what does our work program look like and what does the balance sheet look like around that. So it's got a dual requirement now that we've got to get this right and road test it.
Right. Okay, any other comments? Oh, yes, Mike.
Well, normally would be investigating the 9 million as well, but probably in a bit of shock about the 29. So did I hear it right that the Leamington, that piece of work in Leamington, the 9 mil, wasn't even sort of on the radar, and now it is? Just to clarify that one for me again.
We're still unpicking it. Sorry, through the chair. We're still unpicking it at the moment. it's something that was highlighted as part, when we did the wastewater bridge in terms of that the subsequent piece of work would be needed in terms of that upgrading. From what we've been able to establish, it was included, I believe, in the 2018 long-term plan, but didn't carry through into the 2021. So whether consideration has been to incorporating it with another project or wider renewals, but we haven't been able to absolutely establish what's happened. So still unpicking that one at this stage.
Right. I guess the bigger picture too, Steph, just listen to all this is, hey, we're looking at our projects, but I guess if we're going to a CCO, we sort of probably need to double check that others aren't in the same boat. If we're, we just need crystal clarity around whoever's in with us as they want from us, we want from them. So I'd like to know the process of, and if we do jump into this, how we're actually sure that if we jump into bed with other districts, that they've got it watertight too in terms of costs and everything's scoped and everything's accounted for.
Those are great points that you've made, Councillor Peter. Steph, are you going to respond to that or? Okay, yeah. No, I think we would like a bit more information on how that assurance is going to be given though. Yeah, because they're pretty key aspects of stuff that we've got to deal with in the coming months. All right. So that's all for that item. Okay. I can't really thank you for it, but it's good to be appraised of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to know.
That's right. And I think it's not an easy call for the teams to front up and tell you these things, but the important thing is that we do it early and we do it honestly and we come to you even when we don't have the full information yet. As Dawn said, she's still doing tracing work on that second project, but I think it's really important for you to have the confidence that we will come to you early and upfront about these matters when we find them. Hopefully we don't find anything more, but I think that as a modus operandi, it's a really important one.
And we'll get some bit more information as the team gets more information.
Absolutely.
Okay, and now you
So,
signaled
I've got
that
a
you'd
couple.
like a bit more time.
I
with
did
us
just
as well.
5 minutes, if that's okay. Monty and Roger, you okay?
Yep.
Yep, good. Monty, I'm sure you want to get back out sailing again. It's far more interesting than LTPs. Just a couple of things I just wanted to update you on. And we're running at speed on so many fronts. So I just want to make you aware that all of the councils involved in the Waikato Waters Done Well process. So I think there's about 9 or 10 of us. Obviously, each council's at a different stage of where it's at in terms of doing the sustainability and viability work to complete the water services plan, to think about what the options are, and to have the conversations around the elected member table that they need to have. And so the heads of agreement, the draft heads of agreement in terms of how it's being socialised, how it's coming to the council table, but in the first instance, how it's socialised around 10 different councils is obviously quite a tricky thing from a timing perspective. We're not all doing it on the same day. And so ours is coming, what's the magic date, Dawn? Is it still the 20th of November? So that's next week. So ours is coming to you next week. So you get that to conversation and be able to have a look at the heads of agreement and everything that entails. But the first cab off the rank is Otara District Council tomorrow in an open workshop. So tomorrow's is the first day that it will get covered in public about what's in the heads of agreement and what does it look like. So I just wanted you to have a heads up about that. And obviously this is an exercise in magicianry, I think, for Vaughan and Kelvin and Sinead, who are running this program for the Waikato Waters Done Well process. So you will get to see that, and we will be socialising that next week. And then, as I say, in the weeks after that, each of the different councils will be going through their own process. Any questions about that? No? Okay. And I reached out to Networks. You have asked, quite a few of you have asked questions about, the likelihood of the LGFA declining the covenant increase. And if you hold the line, caller, I asked some trusted sources into Wellington about what the likelihood of that is, and the answer came back that Very low unless normal covenants such as revenue are not being addressed, or there's a poor history of strategic planning and financial management. So what that effectively says is there's low risk. And I would say that Waipa's got a pretty damn good record of strategic planning and financial management, given significant pressures, and we're a which is what the government adjustment was specifically designed to do. So saying councils needed left. So just wanted to share that with you. And that Dawn and I are doing some further work. Sorry, I wasn't there on Friday to brief the project governance group, and so with respect need to update them first. But Dawn and I have also been doing some work around the capacity required in the organisation for all of this work going on. We've got our business as usual. We've got our own work to do to our water services plan, and we're obviously involved in Waikato Water's done well. We're keeping the door open, having regular conversations with Hamilton. So there's a lot of capacity. There's capacity issues in that breadth of work. So just to let you know, we are considering that and have got some ideas at play around that. So we'll brief the governance group and then brief you as elected members. But it is causing enormous stress and strain, particularly at Dawn's and my level, but also into the organisation. So the example that we picked up today, that we need to go back and cover off some business case analysis and make sure our works program is really solid, is a good example of the things that we need to make sure we're doing. And we've got the expertise, the strategic purview to support the program team as well and feed into the LTP. So just thought I'd give you a heads up about that. If you've got any questions about any of that, don't hesitate to contact me.
Okay, thanks, Steph. Really appreciate that. Any comments, feedback? No, great. And it's 5-3, so I think we've done really well. Yeah.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you for cheering.
Oh, thank you. And you guys have been great, actually. We've got through quite dry stuff, but it's important. Yeah, and I feel that, we've taken an important step forward and given lots of work to be done back to that team, which is where it should stay. Yeah. Okay, so thank you. Oh, Liz wants to say something, and then I'll ask for a karakita. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, just a quick question. So with you and Susan away the next week or so, is there a deputy plan?
Yes.
I probably missed that email, but.
Yes, no, it's right. So Ken and Kirsty are sharing the dual role. So Ken's got his plate full with a whole lot of stuff internally. So it's largely Ken as the Deputy Chief Executive, but thanks. I need to do some training, don't I? Retrain my brain. I'm a slow learner.
To be honest, I don't know. I don't have the dates as Susan's away either. So just
Tuesday to Friday this week.
That's fantastic. Yep. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
And Ken and Kirsty. Kirsty, particularly for governance issues. So if you've got issues, can you please put them through Kirsty? If you would normally come to me, can you go to Kirsty? That will relieve Ken to make sure that he's able to get on and do the things he needs to. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So that brings everything to a close. So I just ask Dale Marie if you'd close us with a karakia, please.
Susan's got her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Susan. Sorry, I can't see you at all on the screen. So yeah, over to you. Happy to give you some speaking time.
Look, thanks for that. Yes, I on theory should be off on Wednesday to Friday, but we'll see whether I'm capable of travel. So yeah, thanks, and thanks for sharing, Claire.
Oh, thanks, Susan, and really sorry to hear that you're so unwell. Really hope you can, do that trip, but you've got to look after yourself. That's got to be the priority. Yeah. Okay.
Don't sound too good. No.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. So with that, Dale Marie, over to you to close us off.
Kia ora tātou, pai o koutou mahi, ai pai o koutou o ko koe, Claire, i whakahaere o tēnei kaupapa. Whakapaha mai kia kōrua, Monty raua ko Roger, i runga i te ipurangi. Kōrua tahi ko Roger raua ko Joe, e mihi ana kia kōrua i tēnei wā. Kia koe hoki i te maraikura, te koromatua o tēnei whare. Susan, kia piki koe te ora e hoa. O tātou whakakapi tēnei rangi, kua mutu o mātou mahi mō tēnei rā. Manaaki tia mai mātou katoa o mātou hoa, o mātou whānau.